The stars beyond the viewport of Sanctuary Station burned cold and distant, much like the eyes of the 17 species watching Ambassador enter the council chamber. She walked with the careful dignity of someone who had learned to carry invisible weight, her boots clicking softly against the crystalline floor that shifted colors beneath her feet. The Intergalactic Council had summoned humanity to answer one question. Were they ready to join the community of starfaring civilizations? Had prepared for months. She knew the statistics, the treaties, the technological benchmarks humanity had achieved. She had memorized the names and customs of each species, studied their languages, their histories, their values. What she hadn't prepared for was the way they looked at her, as if she were a specimen under glass, something curious and potentially dangerous. The harmonics occupied the largest section of the chamber. Their collective consciousness spread across 43 individual bodies that moved and breathed as one. They reproduced through cellular division, each new generation containing the memories of all that came before. To them, death was simply transformation, consciousness flowing from one vessel to another like water poured between cups. Beside them floated the Vex Concordat, jellyfish-like beings whose bodies pulsed with bioluminescent communication. They had no voices, no faces in the way humans understood them, but their light spoke in patterns more complex than any verbal language. Their seventh wave, regarded with particular intensity, colors shifting across its translucent form in what might have been curiosity or concern. The other species arranged themselves throughout the chamber according to ancient protocols had studied, but didn't fully understand. The creatures whose individual measured in weeks but whose civilization stretched across. The eternal choir of Andromeda, beings of crystallized thought who experienced time differently than flesh-based life. The builders of, who had abandoned biological bodies entirely, existing now as patterns of energy housed in sleek metal forms. Each species had achieved something humanity was still reaching for. They had conquered death in one way or another, had evolved beyond the limitations of mortality into something greater. Or so they believed. Ambassador, the council speaker's voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere, translated through technology couldn't begin to understand. Humanity seeks full membership in this council. You understand what this means? Yes, said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Without thinking, she reached up to touch the small pendant at her throat, a habit so ingrained she barely noticed it anymore. But Seventh Wave noticed. The Vex's lights flickered in a pattern that suggested heightened attention, and felt the weight of that alien gaze on the small cylinder of metal she wore. The preliminary questions began. They asked about human technology, about the colony ships spreading slowly through nearby systems, about trade capabilities and defense systems and political structures. Answered each question with practiced precision, aware that every word was being analyzed by minds far older and stranger than her own. 3 hours into the session, whence throat was dry and her feet ached from standing, the harmonics spoke as one, their 43 mouths forming words in perfect unison. We have observed something curious about your delegation, Ambassador. Each human carries objects of no apparent practical value, small items worn on the body or kept close at all times. Your pendant, for instance. The pilot of your shuttle wears a metal ring on a chain, though it does not fit his fingers. Your security officer has rectangular metal pieces she touches frequently. Explain this behavior. His hand froze on the pendant. She had known this might come up, had even discussed it with her team, but facing the question directly was different from anticipating it in theory. They're personal items, she said carefully. Mementos, things that matter to us. But why? The question came from this time, their chittering translated into flat, emotionless words. Our analysis indicates these objects serve no functional purpose. They are not tools. They are not decorative in your cultural context. They are, by your own admission, simply things you carry. This suggests psychological dependency, possibly compulsive behavior. Felt heat rise in her cheeks. They're not compulsions, they're remembrances. Seventh Wave's lights pulsed urgently, and the translated voice that followed held an edge of something might have called concern if she'd believed the Vex capable of such emotion. Ambassador, we request a private anthropological session. This behavior pattern appears across your entire delegation, suggesting a species-wide phenomenon we must understand before proceeding with your membership application. If humanity suffers from a collective psychological condition, it may affect your suitability for council inclusion. The words landed like a physical blow, opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Refusing would only confirm their suspicions. She had come here to prove humanity belonged among the stars, and that meant answering even the questions that cut closest to the bone. Of course, she said, when would you like to meet? Now Seventh Wave pulsed, if you are willing. The private chamber was smaller, more intimate, though no less alien. Seventh Wave floated in a tank of oxygenated liquid, their body casting strange shadows on the walls as internal lights flickered in constant communication. Sat across from them, the pendant heavy against her chest. Tell me about the object you wear, Seventh Wave said, their lights forming gentle, non-threatening patterns. Fingers found the pendant again, this time consciously. She turned it slowly, feeling the familiar weight, the slight warmth from resting against her skin. It's a memorial pendant, she said quietly. It contains ashes. The lights on Seventh Wave's body stopped moving entirely for a moment, a pause that might have been confusion or shock. Ashes, remains of biological matter. Yes, my daughter's ashes. Her name was Sophia. She died 2 years ago in the colony transport accident. She was 8 years old. Seventh Wave's lights began moving again, but in patterns had never seen, combinations of colors that her translator struggled to interpret. The child is deceased, no longer exists in biological form, yet you carry physical remains. I do not understand. In what way does this serve you? Had been asked versions of this question by therapists, by well-meaning friends, by her own reflection in dark moments. But hearing it from an alien intelligence, asked with genuine incomprehension rather than judgment, made her truly consider the answer for the first time. She's gone, said slowly. I know that. I know she's not coming back, that nothing I do will change what happened. But carrying this, it means she's still with me in a way. I can feel the weight of it. I can touch it when I miss her. It's a reminder that she was real, that she mattered, that she existed. But you have memories, Seventh Wave pulsed. Your neural pathways retain information about this child. Why do you need a physical object? Because memories fade, said, and was surprised to find tears on her cheeks. Because some days I can't remember the exact sound of her laugh or the way she smelled after playing outside. The pendant is constant. It's proof. It's her, in the only way I can still have her. Seventh Wave was silent for a long moment, lights moving in contemplative patterns. This is common among humans, to maintain physical connection to the deceased. Yes, we have cemeteries, places where we bury our dead or keep their ashes. People visit them, bring flowers, talk to the stones that mark the graves. We create memorials, build monuments, carve names into walls. We make art about people who are gone, write songs, tell stories. Every human culture I know of has elaborate practices around death and remembering. This seems inefficient, Seventh Wave observed. The dead cannot benefit from these practices. The resources and emotional energy expended on remembrance could be directed toward the living. That's not how it works for us, said. The living need to remember. We need to honor our dead to keep them close. It's not about efficiency, it's about love. Seventh Wave's lights flickered in pattern the translator couldn't parse. I must present this information to the council, they said finally. This phenomenon may be significant to your application. We will reconvene tomorrow. Left the chamber feeling exposed, as if she'd revealed something too intimate, too human for alien understanding. She returned to her quarters and sat by the viewport, watching the stars wheel slowly across the darkness. Her hand found the pendant again, and she whispered words she'd spoken 1,000 times. "I'm sorry, baby girl, I'm trying. I'm trying to make you proud." The stars gave no answer but hadn't expected one. The dead didn't speak, not really. They lived on in the hearts of those who remembered them, in the weight of love that persisted beyond death. And for humans, that weight was everything. The council chamber felt different the next day, charged with a tension couldn't name. Seventh Wave had requested an emergency full session, breaking protocols that had stood for thousands of years. Stood once again before the 17 species, but this time their attention felt sharper, more focused. "The Vex Concordat has brought concerning findings to our attention," the council speaker announced. "Ambassador, you will address the council on the subject of human death practices." Had spent the night preparing, though not in the way she'd prepared for any other diplomatic presentation. She had called her team together and asked them each to share the stories of what they carried. The pilot had shown her his husband's wedding ring and told her about James, who had died in the same accident that took Sophia. The security officer, Lieutenant Sarah, had revealed her brother's dog tags, explaining how he died protecting his unit on a peacekeeping mission. The botanist doctor had pressed a small seed packet into his hand, seeds from her mother's garden on Earth. Now, standing before the council with a data pad full of images and information, realized she wasn't just speaking for humanity's admission. She was speaking for every human who had ever loved and lost, who had carried their dead forward into the future. "You've asked me to explain human death practices," began, "to help you understand why we carry our dead with us. I'm going to show you something of our history, our cultures, our hearts." The holographic display activated, and the first image filled the chamber, the Great Pyramid of Giza, golden in desert sunlight. 4,000 years ago, humans built this. It took decades, required resources and labor we could barely afford. Why? To honor one dead man, to ensure he would be remembered. More images followed in rapid succession. Burial mounds in Ireland older than the pyramids. The army of China, thousands of clay soldiers created to accompany an emperor into death. Viking ship burials, Egyptian mummification, Aztec death ceremonies, Aboriginal Australian smoking ceremonies. Every culture, across every continent, across thousands of years, developed elaborate practices around death, continued. We didn't do this because we were primitive or because we didn't understand that death was final. We did it because we understood something else, that love doesn't end when life does. She changed the display to show the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, that long black wall carved with names. This memorial contains 58,000 names. Every year, people travel from across Earth to touch these names, to leave flowers, to cry. Some of these people never even knew the ones who died, but they remember anyway. They honor the sacrifice. They shifted in their seats, mandibles clicking in what might have been agitation. "This is inefficient," one spoke. "The dead are dead, why waste resources?" "Because they aren't truly dead while we remember them," said. "Let me show you something else." She pulled up footage from the September 11th memorial, two vast pools of water falling endlessly into voids where towers once stood. Around the edges, names. So many names. Humans died here. We built this memorial not just to remember them, but to honor the hole their absence left in the world. These falling waters represent tears that never stop, grief that never fully heals. We visit this place not to worship death, but to acknowledge the weight of loss. The eternal choir chimed in crystalline voices. "You say grief never heals. This suggests psychological damage. How do humans function while carrying this wound?" Smiled, though her eyes were wet. "That's the thing you don't understand yet. We don't function despite our grief. We function because of what grief teaches us. Watch." The next series of images showed memorials from humanity's darkest moments. The Holocaust museums with their walls of photographs and shoes and hair. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial standing as a testament to nuclear horror. Slavery memorials. Genocide remembrances. Plaques marking the sites of terrorist attacks, natural disasters, pandemics. We remember our worst moments, said. We force ourselves to look at the terrible things we've done and the terrible things that have been done to us. We build museums and memorials and monuments to ensure we never forget, because forgetting would be easy, and forgetting would mean we learned nothing. Seventh Wave's lights pulsed urgently. You deliberately maintain memories of trauma. This contradicts our understanding of healthy psychological development. Does it? Challenged. You asked how we function while carrying grief. Let me tell you about someone on my team. His name is, he's our lead engineer and he lost everything in the colony transport accident 2 years ago. His husband, James. His 2 sons, David and Michael. His parents who had come along to help with the... She pulled up a photo with his family, all of them laughing, alive, whole. Carries James's wedding ring every day. He has photos of his sons in his quarters. He tends a small plant his mother gave him before they left Earth, and for the past 2 years has worked 16-hour days designing new safety systems for colony transports. He's revolutionized our emergency protocols, improved hull integrity specifications, developed new warning systems. His work will save thousands of lives. His voice grew stronger. Doesn't do this work despite losing his family. He does it because he lost them. He carries them with him every single day, and their deaths give his work meaning. He's building a future where no one else has to feel what he felt. That's not dysfunction. That's purpose born from grief. The council chamber fell silent. Could see confusion in the body language of species that had never experienced loss this way, had never understood that absence could be a presence, that the dead could motivate the living more powerfully than any living reward. I want to show you one more thing, said softly. The display changed to show a simple garden on Earth, newly planted. Young trees in neat rows, each with a small plaque at its base. This is the memorial grove for the colony transport accident victims. We planted 1 tree for each person who died, 347 trees. Families come here to sit with their dead to watch the trees grow. As the trees mature, they'll provide shade for picnics, shelter for birds, oxygen for the living. The dead, transformed into life. Turned to face the council directly. You asked me to explain why humans carry their dead. Here's the truth. We carry them because they shaped who we are. My daughter Sophia wanted to be she loved learning about alien plants, alien ecosystems. She drew pictures of gardens on other worlds. She's the reason I'm standing here today. When humanity's application to the council came through, when they asked for volunteers to be ambassadors, I thought about Sophia. I thought about her dream of exploring the stars. I couldn't let her dream die with her. She touched the pendant at her throat. I carry her here, close to my heart, and she pushes me forward. Every human here carries someone, carries his family and builds safety systems. Sarah carries her brother and protects others the way he protected his unit, carries her mother and grows things in the dark of space, because her mother believed life could flourish anywhere. The tears were flowing freely now, and didn't bother to hide them. We don't carry our dead because we can't let go. We carry them because love doesn't end at death. Because the people we loved gave us gifts, taught us lessons, showed us how to be better. Forgetting them would mean losing those gifts. Moving past them would mean betraying everything they gave us. She took a deep breath. You asked if we're ready to join the Council of Starfaring Civilizations. I'm asking you, are you ready to include a species that brings its dead to the stars? Because we can't leave them behind. We won't leave them behind. Everywhere humanity goes, we carry the weight of everyone we've ever loved and lost. That weight makes us stronger, not weaker. It reminds us why we explore, why we build, why we reach for the stars in the first place. stood in the silence that followed, her heart pounding, uncertain whether she'd convinced them or condemned humanity's application to failure. The species of the council looked at each other, communicating in ways she couldn't perceive, making decisions she couldn't influence. Finally, the council speaker's voice filled the chamber. "This session is adjourned. The council will deliberate. Ambassador, you will be summoned when we have reached a decision." Nodded and left, her legs shaking, her mind racing. She had shown them everything, laid bare the human heart in all its grieving glory. Now all she could do was wait and hope that they understood. That night, alone in her quarters, she held Sophia's pendant and whispered, "I tried, baby. I showed them what you mean to me, what all our dead mean to us. I hope it was enough." 3 days passed in agonizing suspension, and her team were confined to their quarters, provided with food and necessities but given no information about the council's deliberations. They played cards to pass the time, told stories, shared memories of those they carried, talked about teaching his sons to swim. Sarah remembered her brother's terrible jokes, described her mother's hands in the garden soil, planting seeds with infinite patience. On the morning of the 4th day, the summons came. The council chamber felt different as entered. The lighting had changed, softer somehow, and the arrangement of the species seemed less formal, less rigid. Seventh Wave floated nearest to the human delegation area, their lights moving in patterns had learned to recognize as contemplation. "Ambassador," the council speaker began, "the council has completed its deliberations regarding humanity's application. However, before we announce our decision, Seventh Wave of the Vex Concordat has requested permission to address the council and present additional findings. This is highly irregular, but we have granted the request." Seventh Wave drifted to the center of the chamber, lights pulsing in a rhythm that seemed almost nervous. "I have spent the past 3 days conducting extensive interviews with every member of the human delegation," Seventh Wave began. "I requested detailed information about the deceased they carry, the methods of remembrance, the psychological impact of maintaining connections to the dead. What I discovered has profound implications not just for humanity's application, but for our understanding of consciousness, purpose, and the nature of civilization itself." The lights on Seventh Wave's body began forming complex patterns, data flowing across the holographic displays that surrounded them. "The pilot carries his husband's wedding ring. By all psychological metrics we understand should be non-functional. He lost 5 immediate family members in a single traumatic event, yet he reports for duty every day. He has innovated 17 major safety improvements to human spacecraft. He mentors younger engineers. He maintains social relationships. He experiences joy, laughter, satisfaction in his work." The data shifted, showing brain scans, hormonal profiles, psychological assessments. "Lieutenant Sarah carries her brother's identification tags. She witnessed his death. She carries survivor's guilt, post-traumatic stress, chronic grief. Yet she scores in the top percentile of human security forces. She is calm in crisis situations. She protects others with dedication that exceeds standard duty parameters." More data, more impossible contradictions. "Doctor tends a plant from her deceased mother's garden. She reports that she talks to the plant, that caring for it helps her feel connected to her mother. This should indicate dissociation from reality. Instead, Doctor is one of humanity's leading. She has published groundbreaking research. She forms healthy relationships with living colleagues." Seventh Wave's lights pulsed with increasing intensity. "Every human I interviewed carries at least one deceased individual in active memory. Many carry dozens. Some carry hundreds when you include cultural figures, historical persons, casualties they witnessed through media coverage. Ambassador alone maintains active memory of her daughter Sophia, her father who died when she was young, her grandmother who raised her, a childhood friend killed in an accident, her mentor at university. the 346 other victims of the colony transport accident whose names she has memorized, and approximately 70 historical figures she considers personal inspirations. The council stirred, species conferring in whispers and lights and thoughts. By any rational analysis, humans should be psychologically crushed by this cumulative weight, Seventh Wave continued. The grief load they carry would overwhelm any other species we know. Yet humans don't just survive this burden. They thrive with it. They build civilizations on foundations of remembered dead. They create art that spans generations, each artist building on the work of predecessors they never met but deeply honor. They conduct science by standing, as one of their sayings goes, on the shoulders of giants who died centuries ago. Seventh Wave turned to face the council directly. I have come to a conclusion that disturbs me, that challenges everything we understand about psychological health and evolutionary advancement. Humans don't carry their dead despite being functional. They are functional because they carry their dead. The chamber erupted in confusion. The harmonic's unified voice rose in protest. The chittered urgently. The builders of hummed with electromagnetic agitation. Explain, the council speaker demanded. Seventh Wave's lights formed patterns of absolute certainty. Every human achievement is built on remembering those who came before. When designed safer spacecraft, he channels his grief into protecting others. When Sarah stands guard, she honors her brother's sacrifice by continuing his mission to protect the vulnerable. When grows plants in harsh environments, she fulfills her mother's belief that life can flourish anywhere. They don't move past their grief. They move forward with it. The lights shifted to show new data, comparisons between human civilization and the species of the council. Consider what we have achieved by conquering death. The harmonics share collective memory but feel no individual loss. We preserve information perfectly, but we have not innovated significantly in 3,000 years. Why? Because innovation requires the urgency of mortality, the desire to accomplish something before death claims you. The harmonics fell silent, their unified consciousness processing this uncomfortable truth. The builders of upload consciousness before biological death, we achieve immortality. Yet our greatest creative works came during our biological phase. Since uploading became standard practice, we have created no new art, written no new music, developed no new philosophies. Why? Because art comes from grappling with mortality, from trying to create something that outlasts the flesh. The builders' electromagnetic fields fluctuated with what might have been distress. They have 3 weeks per generation, but consciousness transfers to the next generation. We never fear death, yet we never fight for futures we won't personally experience. Our longest-term planning extends mere months. Humans plant trees they will never see mature. They build cathedrals across generations. They sacrifice themselves for causes that won't pay off for centuries. They do all this for the dead and for the not yet born. Seventh Wave's lights pulsed with an urgency had never seen. We asked if humanity suffers from a collective psychological condition. I submit that they do not. Instead, I propose that we, the species of this council, suffer from a deficit. We have conquered death and lost something vital in the process. We have gained immortality and lost the urgency that drives innovation. We have preserved consciousness and lost the weight that gives actions meaning. The chamber fell absolutely silent, stood frozen, barely breathing, watching alien minds grapple with a truth they had never considered. Humans carry their dead, Seventh Wave said softly, and in doing so, they carry purpose. Every action has weight because it can be the last. Every relationship matters because it can end. Every achievement holds meaning because it honors those who came before and protects those who come after. They live in constant conversation with absence, and that conversation pushes them forward in ways we have forgotten how to move. Seventh Wave turned to. Ambassador, you asked if we are ready to include a species that brings its dead to the stars. I must ask you a different question. Are you willing to teach us how? felt tears on her cheeks again, but this time they were different. These weren't tears of grief or fear or frustration. These were tears of being seen, truly seen, for the first time by minds that had seemed too alien to ever understand. "Yes," she whispered, "yes, we'll teach you." The council speaker's voice filled the chamber. The council will now vote on humanity's application for membership. One by one, the species voted. The process took hours, with each species explaining their reasoning, debating the implications, grappling with revelations about their own civilizations. The eternal choir voted yes, their crystalline voices singing of rediscovering the weight of time. The builders voted yes, their electromagnetic fields humming with the memory of biological creativity. The voted yes, chittering about the value of long-term vision. Even the harmonics, after long internal deliberation, voted yes, acknowledging that perfect memory without loss had left them stagnant. When the final vote was tallied, it was unanimous. Humanity is granted full membership in the Intergalactic Council, the council speaker announced. Additionally, we grant humanity a unique designation, the first of its kind in council history. You will be known as keepers of memory, and you will help us remember what we have forgotten about the weight of existence. The chamber should have erupted in celebration, but instead, something stranger happened. One by one, members of the council approached. They asked halting questions about how to honor the past, how to create memorials, how to remember. The Eternal Choir asked if they could design a memorial for their extinct predecessor species, beings they had absorbed but never mourned. The builders wondered if they could create a museum for their biological ancestors, to remember the flesh they had left behind. The requested guidance on creating long-term records that would honor individuals rather than just preserving collective knowledge. And seventh wave, floating before with lights pulsing in patterns that translation, said something that made breath catch. "I have no words in my language for what I am experiencing. We Vex do not cry. We have no tear ducts, no biological mechanism for it. But watching your presentation, hearing about Sophia, understanding what it means to carry love beyond death, my body produced this." A single color pulsed across seventh wave's form, unlike anything had seen in their light language. It wasn't joy or sadness or anger or fear. It was something new, something the Vex had never felt before. "What is it?" asked softly. "I believe," seventh wave said slowly, "it is grief for all the grief I have never felt, sorrow for all the loss I have never experienced. It is the recognition of an absence I didn't know existed. If humans can cry for their dead, perhaps we Vex can learn to weep for what we've never known how to mourn." Around the chamber saw similar transformations. The harmonics stood motionless, their collective consciousness processing individual loss for the first time. They had fallen silent, their brief lives suddenly feeling the weight of generations. The builder's electromagnetic fields fluctuated with patterns that might have been remembered biological tears. The council was weeping, not with water, not with sounds, but with the sudden crushing weight of understanding what it meant to love so deeply that absence becomes presence, to honor the dead while building futures, to carry grief as a gift rather than a burden. Reached up and touched Sophia's pendant, feeling that familiar weight against her chest. "We made it, baby girl," she whispered. "We made it to the stars, and I brought you with me, just like I promised. And now everyone will know that the dead don't have to be forgotten, that love doesn't end, that the weight we carry makes us who we are." Through the viewport behind the council seats, Earth shone in the distance, a small blue marble carrying 8 billion humans, each one carrying countless dead in their hearts, each one building tomorrow from the memory of yesterday, each one proving that the weight of love is the only weight worth carrying forever. The Intergalactic Council had wept when they learned humans carry their dead in their hearts forever, but they weren't weeping from pity or concern or judgment. They were weeping because humanity had shown them something they had lost or never known, that death gives life meaning, that absence can be presence, that the dead can light the way forward if only you remember to carry them. Stood beside, his husband's ring warm against his chest, and smiled through his tears. Sarah touched her brother's dog tags and stood a little, thought of her mother's hands in garden soil, and knew she would plant new gardens on 100 worlds. And somewhere, in the vast dark between stars, in the weight that pulls hearts forward, in the love that survives death itself, Sophia and James and David and Michael and Sarah's brother, and's mother and all the countless dead that humans carried were present in the way that mattered most. They were remembered, they were honored, they were loved. And they would travel with humanity to every star, every world, every future yet unwritten, carried forever in hearts that refused to forget, in a species that had learned the most important truth in the universe, that the dead don't have to die if someone remembers their name, their laugh, their love. The council chamber slowly emptied, species returning to their quarters to contemplate what they had learned, to begin the hard work of remembering what they had forgotten, but stayed, watching Earth through the viewport, feeling the weight of her daughter close to her heart. "Thank you, Sophia," she whispered. "Thank you for teaching me how to love. Thank you for showing me that some weights are worth carrying forever." The stars burned cold and distant but didn't feel cold anymore. She felt the warmth of memory, the weight of love, the presence of absence. She felt human. And now, finally, the universe understood what that meant.